Hi, my name's Colin White and I'm a volunteer at ScienceWorks. And today I'm going to talk to you about one of my hobbies, which is birding. I've been birding in many different places over many different years. But of course, like everybody else at the moment, I'm at home most of my time. But I still find birding relaxing and enjoyable even at home. And today I want to talk about birding in your backyard because we're at the time of the year when many birds are migrating through, and it's fun just to go outside and watch birds. And you don't have to be an expert, and you don't have to have any special equipment. But of course, it does help sometimes to have a pair of binoculars so you can see birds better. But that's not essential. So I'm going to start this presentation by showing you a small video I took of the birds at my feeder last week. And it's a very short video. But I want you to see how many different species of birds you think are in this video and see if you can identify them. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you how many birds there were and tell you what the species of those birds were. Hello again, hopefully you enjoyed that video and found it relaxing. Let's assume that you weren't able to identify any of those birds, but you'd like to find out what birds they were and find out more information about them. I'm going to introduce you to a tool called Merlin. That tool is developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Their website is birds.cornell.edu. And their website contains a lot of useful information, all about birds for people of all different ages. For example, if I look at the K through 12 section of the website, it's got a lot of information there about projects you can do. For example, participate in citizen science, how to conduct science investigations, and so on. And so this is a very interesting site. One of the parts of the site that I use quite a lot is called All About Birds. It has information about different kinds of birds. It has this Merlin app that I mentioned. One other interesting thing about this section of the website are the bird cams. These are cameras they have in various places that actually monitor what birds are doing. And this is particularly interesting this time of year because birds are hatching their eggs, and you can actually watch the eggs hatch out and the birds develop in real time. So that's a really exciting part of the website. But we're going to be using the Cornell Labs applications to really identify birds. Now, you can use this desktop application to do bird ID. As I said, you load up the Merlin application to do that. But I'm actually going to show you Merlin working on my iPad, because it's actually interesting to use this application on an iPad or an iPhone or an Android phone and so on. So here we see a version of Merlin running on my iPad, and there are two main ways of identifying a bird in Merlin. One is by describing it. The green button, Start Bird ID, is the way we do that. If we'd taken a photograph of the bird, then we could actually upload that to Merlin using the Photo ID button, and it would try and identify it from the photograph. But we're going to do it by actually trying to describe the bird. And the bird we're going to try and identify is the first bird we saw in the video, which was a fairly large bluebird. So we're going to start bird ID. And the first thing it wants to know is, well, where did you see the bird? And you can describe, you can put the place name in there, you can put your zip code in there, you can identify it on a map. Now, I saw this in my backyard at my feeder, and I live in Talenton, Oregon. So it remembers places you've been to before, which of course is, in my case, Talenton, Oregon. It then wants to know, when did you see the bird? And of course, the birds we see vary throughout the course of the year. This video was created fairly recently in the spring, so we're just going to go with today's date. The next thing it wants to know really is, well, how big was the bird? And as I said, that bluish bird was a fairly large bird. If you're familiar with crows, it's sort of like the size of a crow. So we're going to tick that button there, which is a crow-sized bird. Next thing it wants to know is, well, what color was it? And that bird was very strong in blue color, so we tick blue. And the next thing it wants to know is, well, where exactly did we see that bird and what was it doing? And what we saw was it was eating at a feeder, so we're going to tick that button. To find out more information about the Steller's jay, we could go back to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website, and we can use the section all about birds to find out more information. So let's click on that. And as I mentioned before, this section also enables us to run Merlin on a desktop computer, but we've already run that on my iPad, and we know we're interested in more information about the Steller's jay. So we can enter the name of the bird we're interested in the search field, and as you see, I've already looked for some birds, one of which was in fact the Steller's jay. So if we hit the go button there, it will tell us more information about the Steller's jay. And in fact, one of the things we can do is listen to what the bird sounds like. And if you go back to, if we'd gone back to the video I showed you, that is very similar to the sound that we heard in the video. So we can go down and look at more information about the Steller's jay. It would tell us about the food that it likes to eat, how it nests, its behavior. It also shows a map of where the bird occurs, and as you can see, very much it occurs down the west-hand side of the United States. It occurs all year round. And in fact, if you look at the western part of Oregon here, where we are, that's an area that you see it. As we scroll down, we can see more information, information about how to attract Steller's jays to your feeders and to your backyard. Interesting information about the Steller's jay. And as we scroll down, it will show similar species, and as we can see, there are other kinds of jay there. And it will also show you other information about other species in this family of birds. And lastly, it will also point you to other places you can go to find out more information about the Steller's jay. So as you can see, this website provides fairly comprehensive information about birds in general that we see in our backyards. The last section of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website I'd like to show you is a feature called eBird. Let's sort of go to that. It's much probably easier to show you that. People use eBird to actually record information about the birds they see. I personally keep a written log of the birds I see, so I don't use eBird for that. But the other useful thing about eBird is to find out information about the kind of birds you see in your area and the types of bird people have seen recently. So let's try that. So we can do that under Explore Regions. We could do it for the whole of Oregon, but let's drill down a bit, perhaps go to Jackson County. And as we can see, there are quite a few Jackson counties in the United States. We're going to choose the one for Oregon. And that will now go to eBird and look at the birds that have been seen in Jackson County. And as we can see here, something like 43,000 different sightings have been listed in eBird, and they show that 309 different species have been seen in Jackson County. And in fact, it shows recent sightings. So there's a person here called Bob Hunter on the 20th of April. Saw a whole load of birds in Jackson County. We can drill down into even finer granularity there. We can go to the map here. If we look at, and it will show you a map of Jackson County, and it will show the various sightings that have been seen there. So let's drill down in a little bit more detail here. So let's take, perhaps we could take Ashland. If I can find it here. There we go. So there's Ashland. One place I like to walk along is Bear Creek Greenway. Sometimes I cycle along there, and sometimes I walk along there, and it's a nice place to walk. It's very birdy along there, as we've seen. Something like 153 species have been seen in Lynn Newbury Park, which is in Talon. But let's click on that, and it will fetch information about the birds that have been seen there. So let's click on details. And so again, it shows in that specific area of Talon where I live and often walk or ride my bike, the last sightings of birds recorded there was on the 16th of April. And as we can see, quite a variety of different birds that were seen there. So this is useful for exploring really the kind of birds you can see locally. When we get back to normality again and you travel more, you can actually explore the kind of birds that you see in the areas that you visit. There are a wide variety of websites on the internet about birds and birding. I'm going to mention a couple of them. One very well-known organization is the Audubon Society. Has a number of different chapters around the country. The Rogue Valley has its own chapter. It's the Rogue Valley Audubon.org is its website. Has a monthly newsletter that you can download. Has information about what's going on in birding in the area. Has a list of birds that have been seen recently. Also on the website there's a photo gallery of where local birders actually store their photographs and show photographs of birds that have been seen in our area. Like eBird, it has a list of, again, birds that have been seen recently. When we get back to normality, the Audubon Society locally runs a number of birding events. Groups of people get together and go to various places in Jackson County and go birding together. That's a fun thing to do. Also, you can learn from more experienced birders. National Audubon has its own website. Again, a lot of information about birding. There's an interesting section of that on backyard birding. Contains lots of information about how to attract birds to your yard, the kind of foods they like to eat, and so on, and has activities for people of all different ages. So you might find that interesting to visit. Let's go back to where I started. I showed you a little video of birds I've seen in my backyard, and I wanted you to see how many different species of birds you could see and if you could identify any of them. So let's have a look at that. There were in fact 7 different species of birds in that video. One we've identified, which was the Steller's jay. Top left was a bright yellow bird with a black cap. That's an American goldfinch. Slightly drabber bird with a yellow breast is the lesser goldfinch. Very stripy bird with a little yellow in its tail and wing here. That's a pine siskin, very similar size to the other 2 birds we saw here. On the right hand side, the one at the top is the black-capped chickadee. You see those all year round. They're fun birds. They go chickadee, chickadee is their call, so that you can often just hear them and you know what they are. In the winter, we often get mountain chickadees coming down to our feeders, although they go back up to the mountains and Mount Ashland in the summer. The bird in the middle here is a kind of woodpecker. It's a flicker, very beautiful bird. We do get other woodpeckers into our feeders. Recently we've been getting acorn woodpeckers. They're fun to look at. Lastly, in the bottom right hand corner here, we have a nuthatch. It's a white-breasted nuthatch. It has white breast, very small little bird, long bill. We do get the red-breasted nuthatch, although we tend to see that more in the winter. We saw them recently, but we haven't seen them for the last week or 2. And again, I think they tend to depart much probably further up the mountains in the summer. So there were 7 birds then. I'm interested to hear about how many birds you saw and if you can identify any of them. I mentioned that the internet's a very good place for finding information about birdings, but also there are numerous books. There are 2 key field guides I use, although there are many more. I like Sibley's books for identifying birds. The Peterson guide is also very useful. It contains little markers to identify key parts of the bird that can be used to identify it. There are many birding books for kids, colouring books, birds about backyard birding and so on. So a fun hobby, a hobby you can do anywhere, a hobby you can do at home in your garden, in your backyard, a hobby you can do in the future when things get back to normal, when you go travelling. And you don't need really any equipment to do it. A pair of binoculars, as I said at the beginning, can be useful, but it's just fun to relax and watch birds. I hope you found this presentation useful. Thank you for watching.